All the wisdom teachings, all the pointers, they are about the nature of awareness, right? They're about this quality of being aware. They're not about an experience or a state. As soon as you understand that, you're on the right track. And as long as you don't understand that, you will all be off on the wrong track. It's about the nature of awareness in this moment, in any moment. The nature of awareness is like this, that you can never, ever find a separate self in awareness. It's impossible. Why? Because in awareness, you will only find faces and voices and thoughts and feelings, and none of those are separate selves, right? So what that first point you have to understand is there's no basis for this belief in separate selves. There's no proof. You've never observed one. Yeah, but the belief remains because there's the you, right? That I am such a separate self. There's this belief that awareness is possessed by entities. Sentient entities possess sentience. That is the belief. But the nature of sentience is that you never find a sentient entity in sentience. So what is the reason for this belief? It's just a belief, right? It's an unexamined belief. It's like what we do with land, right? When humans find a new bit of land, they plant a flag, and this is my land. Now the land is your land. And then the natives come and you tell them, get off, this is my land, right? I said, what do you mean it's your land? They say, look, there's a fence, there's sticks here, and that's the boundary, and that's my land. And they say, you mean these sticks which grew from the tree, from this land? Like, somehow that makes this your land now. That's what's happening in the thoughts that are appearing, the beliefs, using them, not you. The thoughts, the web of thoughts is using them to build this conceptual self. It's entirely conceptual. And then you say, look, there's a mailbox, there's a letterbox with my name on it. That's my land. It's just a name, right? It's just a name. Awareness is like the land. We can never actually split it. We only split it in concepts. But there's no way to divvy it up and allocate it to things that do not exist. So all the pointers, all the teachings, we keep returning to this, that it sounds all amazing. Sometimes it sounds like it's describing a state you've never experienced, but it is all about the nature of awareness, what it means to be aware. You are not a sentient thing, but the sentience itself. And this it's not a far-fetched thing. It's just to look at sentience as it is, where you never find any separate entities in it. And you stop taking yourself to be one. All right. Let's go into discussion mode. Yes, Chris.
So when all of this comes up in our awareness, especially that these thoughts, however that phenomena arises, when we get stuck, what is that? Like what is that? attention that seems to focus in on a thought or a feeling that kind of pulls us in and gets us stuck, and sometimes keeps us from noticing the awareness that we are. I don't know if that question makes sense. Makes sense in my head, but I don't know if it makes sense.
I mean, the land is always the land, right? To be aware means you are the awareness. Now, this is the nature of phenomena you're talking about, right? They can be, you have to take experience as a whole, right? They can be an experience where you're looking at a wide open space, and that's a different kind of experience than a very focused thought. But that is the nature of the experience. If the thought is fully captivating, that's not somebody getting trapped, or it's someone focusing. That is that nature of that experience. Does that make sense? These are all qualities of the experience. Like you have just focus on sight, right? If you're standing near the beach, it's wide open panoramic view. If you're in a cave, it's a myopic view. But that is the nature of the scene, and that has nothing to do with awareness itself.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just taking out that belief because as you started saying that, I'm sure you realized you were again talking about we having awareness, right? And that's the problem. There is no, that is the wrong belief. Awareness cannot be allocated to individuals.
Thank you.
Just piggybacking on that question, some of those experiences, yeah, great, that's the nature of them, but it takes you away. It makes you not be able to access that awareness. Like it feels like you're, okay, you want to come back from that experience and say, okay, where was I? And then it becomes like farther away because you gave your attention to that experience, you submerge yourself. I think, can you elaborate on that?
How can you be further or nearer to awareness, right? It's again the nature of the experience. So what happens is, because of all the meditation stuff, you found some nice states. Yeah, there's peaceful states and there's messy mind and all that, right? And you're noticing the difference. But awareness is not just the peaceful state. Everything is arising in that, right? All kinds of things grow on the land. They can be thorny bushes and wonderful trees and whatever. Who's going to stop it? The land doesn't say no.
Yeah,
Right.
I think the underlying thing is, okay, when you are out in the world and you want to get back to that, you know, you're not getting back to anything. It's there. But how do you, given this apparatus, how do you realize your true self? You tend to use your mind. You start thinking, okay, what was it like? It's the nature of this, you know, this tensions, and that kind of gets you stuck. And then because you don't have access to that. So what's that shortcut that when you're out in the world, you want to get back to it, to that state? What's that shortcut? You can't use your mind, because if you use your mind, I mean, you can, but it takes a long time, meditate, calm down and all that stuff, and then you quickly lose it. How do you bypass the mind process to get back to that?
The first step is to use the mind. You ask the question, and it's a simple, like, it will, like, those are the pointers, right? And you will come up with your own. It'll be one word or one line or not even a word, and it reminds you that the nature of sentience is like this. You just notice, look, right now, where am I? What in all this is I? And no specific thing is I, right? And if you're worried about someone, what are they? Right? What are they? They're not the face you remember. They're not the voice. They're not the memories. What are they? You always come back to the point that there is no separate individual self, that at any point, what is aware is the awareness. Yeah? It's that identity. In maths, we have equalities, but identity is further than equality. Identity means that is it. That is, like it's more than equality. Equality means two things are equal. Identity means the very, I don't know what word to use, but it means there are two names for the same thing, perhaps, right? You're understanding there's an identity here. It's not my identity or hers identity or whatever. A unity, a union, a wholeness. And that is that in awareness, you can never find separate selves. You can never split it among separate selves. And in words, it's all very tricky and stuff, but you can observe it in this second. Are there 10 different people here? They're just faces. Behind the face, what is it? Right now, Nader, can you see? You can see all these faces, right? But you're not just talking to the face, right? You recognize that the one that is aware is hearing the voice, your voice, this voice, that voice, whatever. And in that awareness, we are not finding a we. We're not finding any person. So that is just a theoretical way to look at the world, that there are people and all that. Fine. We can operate in that way. You can still have your plot of land. Then you know that the land is more fundamental than all our boundaries and so on. All right, Neil.
Oh, Nabil.
Hey.
When you started, you said you didn't know what to say, and I feel exactly the same. I think it's kind of normal in Satsang, perhaps, to just to jump in. So I hope you'll bear with me. When I'm in that, when I'm aware, in the place of awareness, taking in mind how non-duality works, i.e. that there's one awareness. There's only one awareness. Language kind of fails you. That okay, so I am that awareness. It occurred to me that you say I am here, and then it just occurs to me that where's here? You know what actually is here? Like maybe like you're saying that all these faces and all these individuals. It's well, is my here and my awareness. It's the same thing. Okay, I mean you're not in Kent in England. You're not you're not sharing my same physical place, but is that awareness, is that consciousness, it's the same. We're all in the same pool, we're in the same sphere. But really my question is my here, your here? Is your awareness my awareness? Is that how it actually is?
So when we say your and my, that's already impossible to me. It's impossible, all right? When you describe that Kent is different from Melbourne or whatever, that's describing the features of a piece of land, right? But we talk about something more fundamental, right? Again, the differences are in the phenomena arising in the experiences and memories and whatever. But the being here means being aware. And there cannot be two kinds of being aware. Yeah. I mean, because my Google thinks I'm interested in consciousness. It keeps sending me articles on that, even though I ignore them. And it keeps sending me articles on, oh, now scientists believe birds are conscious or insects are conscious. Like, duh. Like, yes, that is if there's awareness, there's one kind of awareness. It's not human awareness. Yeah, to be aware is just to have this capacity to perceive. What kind of perception arises depends on the instrument, whatever's going on, what grows on the land. But we are looking at what is most fundamental. And what is most fundamental to you is this quality of being aware. What is most fundamental to reality is the same quality. And when you talk to me, what you're admitting in your own heart is that over there is also this quality of being aware. Yeah, there's already a recognition when we communicate. It's impossible not, like, unless you're talking to a chatbot.
Okay.
Yeah. Razi,
Yeah. Hello, Nabil.
hi.
When you mentioned a little earlier about the screen and the images on the screen, I wanted to pause. I want to do a little bit of inquiry with you to see if I'm. So when you said that, something happened, just like a little, like before you said that, the attention was on the images, and it was more like, oh, these are the people, and then there was just ideas and all that, taking them to be real, just automatically, subconsciously. But when you directed the attention, it was like, oh, wait a minute, these are just pixels and there's really nobody there. It's just light, pixels, and all that is happening here. Like, oh, that's a person, that's a man, that's a woman, like all that's happening here. And then somehow the mind got quiet, like right now. And just the mechanism or the processes just sort of slowing down. And I noticed it was trying to even analyze and figure out and all that. But I don't know, sorry, I was trying not to give it attention, but it was more like the attention was sort of like, just like here. And that thing just started quieting down and dying down. It's not completely died down 100%, but there's that pull, like these people is not as strong right now. But somehow, I mean, on my screen, there are boxes on the right, and then I have your image on the left as the bigger image. But when I looked at your image, you seem more like you're more like still a person to me, and those are more boxes, like just images. And I know I was just noticing that. Why is there a distinction? And I don't know, mine's just doing that. It seems like in these type of environments, it's like a laboratory. Like, the mind's quiet. It's very sanitized environment. And then when this is shut down and I walk outside in daily life, it's just like, but this is beautiful too, just to be able to sit here and what you're pointing out to the awareness. So there's just awareness of some sensations in the face. There's some, I don't know the word gravity, but there's a little like something, a little heaviness, where before it was just more like just thinking. So the idea is I'm not doing it, it's happening on its own right now. You just directed the inquiry, so to speak, and it's sort of, I'm noticing it's happening by itself, which is kind of cool, to be honest, because like I'm not having to make effort, and I'm just noticing the noticing happening.
Yeah, that's exactly one of the steps we need to take. It's the half step back, I call it, right? The half step back. The mind is fuzzy. It's going on its usual business. It will always think in terms of people. And you took a half step back, right? And what you describe, you go from the feeling is going from the brain to the heart. It's like headed to the heart, right? Now, once you see all this is pixels and light and whatever, then from the heart you can see, so what's behind these images, right? Because there's a point to go wrong here, and that is only I am conscious and the rest are things, right? That's the solipsism kind of view of the world. But once you look from the heart, then you know behind all these images, the very same. Yeah, it's just we're wearing a disguise. The disguise is made out of time. Time and space are the disguise. These are my clothes. In the very same moment, each of the experiences everywhere appear in the same awareness. The heart can understand that very easily. The brain cannot.
Yeah, Nabil, if I may, when you say, I'm not able to, seems like, isn't there a thought involved to say that we're the same? Isn't that a thought? Because that's not my experience right now. My experience is just, I don't know what to say, but it's I cannot say we're all the same and there's only one awareness. To me, it seems more like a thought that I have to believe at this moment, perhaps. But I know I hear that, but I would love to experience that directly. I'm missing something, obviously.
Yeah, it's not a thought. It's a recognition that if all that is observed is insentient phenomena, right? All that can ever be observed is experience, perception. And I am not that, right? Are you that? You're not a perception, right?
No, it's
So you're
things are
going back.
perceived.
Yeah, but whatever is perceived is not sentient, right?
Okay.
It's just perception.
Okay.
That cannot be a separate self. Now you're taking a half step back. You're going from the surface level to more fundamental.
Okay.
The surface level is all these insentient phenomena. And if we only go by that, there's no such thing as sentience. You know, there are philosophers who argue that there's no such thing as consciousness. Anyway, so at the surface level, everything is an insentient observation. You pull back. What is the basis of all these observations? That is I. You're going towards the meaning of I. Okay? And that is not a personal I, because that personal I is all among the observations. Everything personal about me is the face, the name, the memories, whatever, even sensation, feeling. Those are observations. Those are not I. What is the basis of all these observations? And what you did, you went from head to heart. It's much more easier to get there from the heart. Okay? From the heart, you know, because you actually, it's kind of like a two-step process. The first is all the older concepts of I are given up. So it's like saying, oh, there's no me. Okay? And not just saying, but really, truly, deeply, that's the implication. There is no me. And when then you say I, that is the all-encompassing I, that wherever an experience is perceived, that must be the meaning of I. There is no other possibility. But it's not far from what you're talking about. Don't worry. Yeah. When you took the half step back, you went from head to heart. From there, everything starts to make sense.
Is there another way what you just described? There's no me. And is there another thing to give up thinking or to not? Because the I is a thought also, right? It's like right now I'm just being here. Everything's quiet. It's a very different beingness that's being experienced right now. even though a question wants to be asked, but I don't want to entertain it because right now it's just so calm, quiet. There's no activity. And the head is somehow tilted for some reason, and it's just so fixated, and it's so, but there's a stillness right now somehow. It's just nothing. I don't have anything to say other than, yeah. Thank you, Al.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Sasha.
I kind of do. In the daily life, automatic reactions still appear, and awareness is noticed only afterwards. I understand that awareness is always present, yet there is a feeling, sense that the reaction happened without the witness. How can one remain in awareness even in those moments?
Could you repeat that a bit?
Sure. In daily life, when let's say there is some emotional situation that triggers some emotion, something strong, and there is automatic reaction that happens very fast. And I notice it only a while after, as if the awareness wasn't really there, but it happens very fast. And noticing, recognition of that what happened occurs after a while.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I mean, through that whole instinctive reaction, whatever happens, the awareness is there. You are the awareness as that happens. Later on, you realize that the way the mind is behaving we judge it to be not up to the standard of what it should be, right? Once you realize this, there's the feeling like I should not behave like this anymore, right? I should never get angry. It just doesn't make sense. Who am I angry at, right? That is when you're in that still feeling Razi is describing, it feels like all that misguided way of behaving should just drop away. And it does, right? When we are still, when it's peaceful, it drops away. But there is still a physical instrument here, and it works in certain ways. When it has a certain stimulus, it reacts a certain way. All the connections were configured over many years. So it will behave the same way. Yeah. Later you recognize, why did it behave that same way? And at the start of how it began to behave that same way was the I concept, right? It came very quickly. Me, her, him, whatever. And then it can branch out and do its thing. Can we completely eliminate that? It could
the I
be.
concept.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a target, yeah.
But do we want to eliminate it completely? And who will do it, right? So it's a rare occurrence that a mind that is completely silenced for the rest of its days. Because when that concept is completely impossible to arise, then behaviors will change. And your own behaviors, many things will have changed. Yeah. It's hard to look back and see how much you have changed. In the moment that you start to feel something you deem to be should not behave this way, right? You notice, instead of letting that engulf you, You look at what is the seed of this behavior. And at the seed will be the me concept, right? Me, them, it, whatever. And we just look at that. And in a second, you can see, oh, that concept is wrong. I've already seen that it is wrong. Now, having seen that it is wrong, whatever happens next will be fine. It will be correct. Because you will be acting based on the truth of how things are. That there's no one to hate. That whoever, that you don't just care about your experience and your stuff and so on. But some of it is just judging that the mind should behave very differently. But it has its own grooves, right? A tree has grown for many years, and then you expect that it should look different. All the branches are there. It's like... But if you always return to the root and find ways to very clearly see that the core point, then things sort themselves out.
So this is process, right? Doesn't instantly, like before and after.
So in the moment, as soon as you see that, you look back and you see the seed and you see, oh, there is no me in that sense. That is instant. The effect of that is instant. But to do that intuitively in the moment, that is a bit of a process, because that is triggered by the mind itself turning back. It recognizes the truth, right? That the conceptual me on the basis of which it is acting and behaving, if it continues to believe in that and continues to act out on that, it remains the same behavior. But if in the same mind there is a turning back, it is another thought arises and says, look, what are you talking about? Then immediately attention goes there, and then the impact is immediate. Yeah, anger that you would have held on to all day, it's gone, poof, gone, right? It's like that kind of effect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now there.
And I'm going to describe a process I have been using and ask a question. So I'm in the middle of something, and I want to get back to that understanding. So what? Say you can give your attention to many things, including your mind and your thoughts, but easy to give your attention to a sensory thing, just what you see. And then just by seeing it, you realize what you are at this moment. And it's kind of like a little bit of an intellectual thing, a little bit of a mental thing, but also you get to a point where you say, well, right now I'm just that seeing. I'm nothing but that seeing at this moment. I'm not the identity, me, or those so and so. I'm just that seeing, nothing else at that moment. And so this becomes a realization. It becomes, yeah, it's a recognition of at this moment, really, honestly, if you look at it honestly, that's what you are. You're the seeing. Then the next step from there, that's basically coming to this, coming to what Buddha said to Bahiya. In the seen, there's only the seen. You kind of get to that point. But then at that point, you kind of have to, you have to say, okay, but I'm not just that seeing, because now I can give my attention to hearing, and I'm the hearing. So what is that I that stays there while the sentience phenomena changes from one to the next? You kind of have to stay at that razor edge of the focus of the mind or quietness of the mind to be able to do this. And then you say, okay, yeah, I'm the seeing when there is a seen. I'm the hearing when there is the heard. So what is that I? And then that's the gateway to get you to this, what you're saying, to the awareness. That's what underlies all this stuff, that awareness. It kind of gets you to the gate of heaven, and sometimes you cross that, and you get to this point where you're just there. It's kind of, you're there. Like it's the that I is there, and that I is there, but there's nothing else. You realize at that moment that you can use your mind at that point to make sense of all this, and 99% you do, and then you get kicked out. but you do have that realization that you can just refuse that and say no. But it's almost like, yeah, I don't know what to say. Like, can you comment on this? Like,
Yeah, it's the Bahiya Sutta is working for you, right?
it works really. I mean, that the first time I heard that, I kind of said this, it was the thing that resonated with me the most.
Mm. So there's two ways, yeah. One is, like, as you describe, you see the seeing, hearing, sensing, all of it in this moment. There's nothing else that can be called I. If there's an I in this moment, that's it, right? But then Buddha says it a bit differently. He's saying in the scene, there's only the scene. It's like, in a way, he's removing Bahiya from the equation. Because you take out the I completely first, then later we can use that word again, right? The scene is not I, the heard is not I, and then he tells Bahiya, you're not with that. So you're not something along with that. Like there's the scene and there's you. No, there's only the scene, and you're not the scene, right? You're not the scene. Mm-hmm. The herd, there's only the herd and all that. You're not with that. You're not in that. So you cannot be in. It just completely eliminates you from being in space. If you're not in space and you're not in physical space, you're not in subjective space. You're just gone. Neither here nor there, nor between the two. Gone, not in time and space. Eliminated. Then there's no you there, Bahiya. That's how he says, then there's no you there, Bahiya. So why are you using the name Bahiya? That itself is a pointer too. Because then it hits home for Bahiya. Then there's no you, Bahiya.
Yeah.
Then all there is that fundamental reality that allows for the seeing, hearing, sensing. Yeah, the word I is obsolete, actually. It's in a way. Because the old I is gone. It's the old king is dead. Long live the king, the real king. Right? So when you're stepping into heaven, how can you step in there? Because you can step in there once you're not a person. No person has ever entered nirvana. And when you kicked out, it's because that old I is coming back.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, the moment you do the mind. So it's a little, this Bahiya Sutta is a little, like it's a subtle difference with what Nisargadatta says, that it says stay with the I am all along this crossing the gate to the other side, the other shore, whatever. You are staying with I am until that I am goes away. Like yeah, but it's the same thing. I realize that. I kind of myself, I hold on to that I am because that's the only thing I got. Like to escape my mind, that's the only thing I got to hold on to instead of mind, because that is there. And that's the process that takes me there. So Nisargadatta
he's being a bit more literal. I think Bahiya is the teaching Buddha gives to Bahiya. That because Bahiya has been through all that. Yeah, he's a venerated sage and so on. So then after you've been through all that and you're still questioning, you still have doubt, then the Bahiya Sutta, in that moment, clarifies everything. You don't need any additional meditation, anything, whatever. It's in the moment, explained, done. Yeah. Nisargadatta, he talks to all sorts of people, new and old, and his is a very literal method. Watch the I am, watch it, and you do it in meditation as well. And literally disappears. There's no me, like experience stops, comes back, and you notice from what standpoint is this experience being noticed. But it brings you to the same conclusion.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sakina. Can't hear you yet.
Sorry. So what I have started noticing in the last 2 or 3 days is instead of saying I, if the music is playing, there is awareness. I could say I am aware of the music. I am aware of my emotions. The sensations in my body, I feel. The thoughts, they come and go. I see them. I can see everything around me. Or the word I see, I am aware. At everything I notice, there is awareness that I am aware, but this I, is this Sakina, is this the form that is aware? Or is there just awareness? There is nothing other than awareness. I mean, I'm trying to question, of course, but at every point, everything else is coming, going, listening, stopping, walking, sleeping, getting up. But there is this that doesn't go, this that doesn't change. Very, very ordinary awareness. Right? Is that like I have never had any experience or any exalted moment or anything in my life. But now, over the last couple of years or months or so forth, a lot of love started coming out. And this was like 2 days ago when I was listening to somebody with this meditation, pointing to our absolute nature and our relative nature. And that's when the absolute nature is just there. It's undeniable in everything. Guide me. Guide me. Just stay, I mean.
Yeah, you have had the exotic experience. Love is the exotic experience. Right?
Love. It's,
love. How can you explain it?
No, there is nothing you can say.
Look. Yeah, Sakina, you get it, right? You got it long ago. I've seen your comments from like years ago when we communicated.
I know, but it slips, you know. Oh, but this love is becoming more and more now. than it ever was.
And in Zen, they say, ordinary mind is the way.
Yeah.
When they say mind, it does not mean a personal mind. This ordinary awareness is the way.
Yeah.
The way, because it is not a destination you get to.
No, there's
It is
no
unfolding.
destination. There is no destination. This is what I used to think to everyone, like, and there is no enlightenment that I need to get to.
To be aware means to be enlightened.
Exactly.
Because no form can be aware. They are the reflections. They are not enlightened. No physical thing can be enlightened. No body, no human thing can be enlightened. Because that is the reflection in awareness. To be enlightened means to be the light, the source of light.
Yes.
Yeah, awareness is most ordinary. That's why it's so hard to communicate why
Yes.
this is important. What's so great about it to half of humanity? This is more than half. It's why are we talking about this?
I mean,
But the
I knew.
other, what we do with land,
Okay.
that is the problem. Yes, sorry. We divvying it up, right? When we say we, when we say my awareness, that is taking what is so fundamental, so real, and so amazing, and takes you to that peace, to that love, to that realization of the nature of reality. And it can be confused by that one single thought.
Yeah.
That awareness can be possessed. I can have my peace. How crazy.
Thanks. Thank you. Tanvir, thank you.
Thank you. In the latest video, right, the way Janaka speaks of hair. And there's two sides to that little dialogue, that one part of the dialogue, as it speaks to me, right? Because the translation is so on and so forth. And Chris asked me about the Ashtavakra Gita in the email. And I told him I've never read it before, right? It's in the comments. Somebody asked me to do some videos a while ago. I looked at it. I loved the first two chapters, and I thought, oh, why is it going into asceticism again? So I didn't do it. And someone else asked me again, and I went back. But now, as I'm doing the videos, then they speak to me. Yeah. So when Janaka describes hair, the first part of what he says is what Nisargadatta pointed out and took me there. No sense perceptions attract my attention. That is the way you are gone. And then you realize, I am here. But then the second part of his dialogue is just the most ordinary life. Yeah. It's just life. Doing and not doing, who cares? I am here. Whatever happens, I am here. That here is an absolute here. Yeah, someone messaged me, I've got to reply that they're still waiting patiently after hearing all this. They're waiting patiently. How can you wait patiently to get here? You are here. The here is not a point in space or time. It is that out of space and time point where where awareness resides. Yes, Nader.
Is it possible to function in the world being here all the time, or you have to come in and out of it?
The
As
world
long as
functions
you-
because of the hair. If there was no hair, there would be no world.
I mean,
The hair
working,
means-
making money for my family and all that, raising my kids.
Yeah, that's the body's job. It's doing it, right? It's been doing it. The hair is not an event in time. It's not going to happen in this life. The hair is the point in which this whole mind can even take shape. Yeah, when Buddha has eliminated everything for Bahiya, there's still hair. He said, you are neither here or there. That's the space here. But then there is the here in which there is the seeing and the hearing and the feeling. That here is absolute. It's not, he's just removed that from, because we think here is a point in space. I am a point in here at a point in space and time. Yeah, Melbourne or Kent and so on.
So to make it literal, you're saying, so I am here, and when something needs to be done in this world, you know, and you do it. You're aware that you know, and you're aware that you're going to do what needs to be done.
That's how it's always been happening, right? You are not doing anything. Once your identity is that you are the awareness. You are aware. The rest is happening because you are aware. In the actions that take place, it can seem that you are the one doing or the one thinking and all that. But you've seen past that already, right? That is all arising in awareness. The thoughts arise, the actions happen. You as awareness are purely just aware. You're making it possible, right? While the mind is confused, it thinks it has this question like, oh, how will I function and so on. But then it's at the mental level, there's also a kind of seeing, right? And the seeing is this, that I, as a brain, and now I'm going to take the other position, okay, which is ridiculous, but because that is not sentient, but as a body, I'm an instrument, I'm a machine, I'm a biological machine. It's not nobody invented me. It over many years, this amazing machine has taken shape. And in this one life, it's been configured and so on. It's it's working automatically, right? Most of the things anyway in the human body, we know it's just automatic, right? Cells replicate and heartbeats, and you're not controlling any of that. There's a tiny portion that was wrongly assumed to be based on the desires or the intentions of a person. Small portion. Now that you see there's no person, even that is autonomous. It's autonomous. You're aware of it happening. You're aware of it so intimately that it feels like it's mine. It's not actually wrong to say it's mine, because everything is yours. As awareness, everything is intimate. When you know this one body, you know it so intimately that you only know this one body. This whole world, everything, this is one body's experience. Because again, we're thinking in terms of time and space, then it feels, if there's another experience somewhere else, that must be some other awareness. No, because awareness is that point outside of space and time. Space and time exist in awareness. Because space is always objective. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so, sorry. That the subtlety there is when I say I come out of here, I think that's the desire, the creativity. Like when I desire something and put my attention to it, it happens. Eventually it happens. It's not that me doing it, but something out there, things line up and events and all that, and I get to my desire. I get to what I want. So what I
The
meant is,
desire is also not yours, right?
that's the tough one. Yeah.
How can it be yours? The desire is also conditioned. It's also coming from this body, this mind, right?
Mhm. I see.
Nothing
It's
wrong
one of,
with it, right? I'm not saying is you should have to stop it or whatever, but it's not yours. The only thing that is yours, yeah, the one quality, if I took away, you would really cease to exist. What is that one quality?
awareness.
That is yours. Because if I take that away, you do not exist. So that is your identity. That's what I mean by identity. It's like, so you, that is you. And the rest is additional, extra. And whatever the additional extra actually came later and is not you.
Got it.
Mm-hmm. Neil?
I hope I'm not asking you something that you've already answered, but I've got to do it from my position. Still don't get I am not the doer. That to me is my stumbling block to, okay, I think I'm getting understanding. Yeah, I'm pure awareness. That is my true nature. That's my true self. But I am not the doer. How do I separate that? How can I remain in the awareness and see that I'm not the doer? Because I think I'm the doer. I'm convinced, in me. It's like, no, I do all of these things. So how can that not be? How can I not be that?
So what can you do? Like, give me an example of what do you think you can do?
Remain in awareness, I guess, to keep going, remembering I am. But
You mean you can do that? Like you can remain in awareness?
I think
Or,
so. I can.
I mean,
try.
no, you are the awareness. Of course, yeah,
Yes.
that's the one thing you can do. You can remain aware. But give me an example of something else you can do. You can think. Do you think you're the one thinking?
I think I'm the one thinking.
Yeah.
I think so.
But that one is pretty obvious, right? If you meditate, you see, if you try to, okay, I'm going to stop thinking. It doesn't stop. If you're the one thinking, just stop it. Can't you?
No, I can't stop my thinking. No.
Yeah.
No.
Can you control what thought will appear next?
No.
No. Yeah.
No.
It's all based on stimulus, right? You're aware of the patterns. The behaviors repeat. Because you repeat, they're kind of predictable, and there's a, because you're at no distance to them. You can cast it in a way that I'm the one doing it. Yeah. But there are many ways to see it's actually not true. You can't stop thinking. Yeah. When my daughter triggers me just right, I will get angry, right? Who gets angry? It's just the way it works. Yeah, I don't like messiness. I have to tell her not to be messy, blah, blah, blah. There's the right trigger to tick that part of the brain off. Who is doing it? You can look at whatever you think you're doing, and your only role in it will be that you are aware as it happens. Yeah. I have this weird theory about the role of consciousness and so on, but it's theoretical. Right? For me, it's why did life need consciousness anyway? Why didn't it evolve as zombies and robots, right? Like, what's the role of consciousness in survival? Because evolution made use of consciousness. It abused it in a way. Yeah. Pain and pleasure, why was it required? It's so there's a role. It's kind of like a feedback loop. That's how I see it. Yeah. Once there's an experience, there's a feedback loop, and somehow that allows learning. Yeah, I think I mentioned it before. Like in all the AI stuff we're training now, it takes a huge amount of computation power to actually adjust the weights of the model. Okay. How does nature do it? How does it do it for free? It's doing it for free. There's no energy being expended on consciousness. Like we can explain the whole system and all the energy is taken care of. Consciousness is not taking any energy. It's a hack life found for that training process. Through pain and pleasure, you can train somehow for survival and all that, right? So there's an intimacy, there's a connection to everything going on. You experience it so closely. It's mine. I feel like it's mine, it's me. And that's fine. Fine. It's intimate. But it's not mine, it's not me. We see, it's just the one core fact that you need to see clearly. What am I in all this, right? In awareness, there's no sentient entity. Who's going to control the thinking? Does awareness think?
No, I don't think so.
No, awareness does not think.
It's just there.
To have the idea of a thinker, we need a sentient entity. You need a self, the kind that does not exist.
After watching your videos, I've been watching a lot of them lately, to actually come to that point, say, I don't exist, or what I've considered myself to be all these years. It's quite a big one to swallow. It's quite a big one to take on board. I don't exist, and that I'm only awareness, and that there's nothing else. But did you understand that? Hence me asking so many questions. That just stepping over that line, it's quite a lot of stuff to let go of, to clear out of the way, to abandon, to dissolve. Yeah.
No, that was the the video where I describe the lightning flashes. It's
Yeah,
like that. It
yeah,
was one lightning flash and I'm done. I'm gone. I'm destroyed. I did not even exist. Destroyed what? Who can get destroyed when you did not even exist? It's the one thunderbolt over, right? It's just seeing clearly. So all I'm pointing out is just return to that one point. It's just clear as house. It's easy. I mean, easy is the wrong word, but it's instantaneous. If there is no sentient entity, yeah, what are we talking about? There's no, that all that ever happened was experiences passed through. That's not being denied. Yeah, the experiences happened. What were you in it? Throughout it all, you remained as the awareness. That is what you are.
Thank you. Thank you.
Razi.
I really don't want to ask a question, but because I can see it's on the surface level. But as you were sharing, I noticed the body's sitting here, and the legs are crossed, and then there's this discomfort beginning to happen, and I noticed a thought. I was like, oh, I should open my legs. Then another thought came up, it's like, no, I shouldn't open my legs. I should just sit like this the whole time, as if it's more spiritual somehow. And I was like, I kind of got sucked into it. Like, well, I don't want to open my legs, but it hurts. And if I open my legs, well, no, I'm going to just tough it out till the end of when this ends. And when you were sharing that, I'm like, I thought it's me. Like, I'm fighting with and this happens all the time in my daily life. Like, I should do this. I should not do it. I don't know what to do. I'm confused. But as you were saying, you said something really beautiful. What is my role in all this? So when you said that, there was a little bit, again, stepping back, like, so I could see a thought, because there's sensations, and it was like, I should open my leg, I shouldn't open my leg. And then I was like, then it's, what should I do? This comes up all the time. What should I do? And I don't know what to do. And then there's like, but then you introduced another option now that I didn't consider before. And what's my role in this? Is it, so when I just observed it, I'm like, should I open my leg? Should I not open my leg? It sounds so silly. I know even saying it sounds so silly, but to me it was very important. It was not silly. It was like really important. It's like, but so when it was like a stepping back, like, it wasn't like I'm neither. It was just observing it. And somehow the whole thing just dropped. And I even forgot that I had that, what to do with the leg thing. It just, it vanished for a few seconds, and until I thought of it. I don't know. I'm just reporting out loud what's happening.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's reminded me. I went through the exact same thing when I used to meditate, right? And you look, what have you noticed? It's very important. Your role in that is you are aware of two thoughts. What's going on? Look, the body has different systems with different priorities. There's the pain system. It's telling the neurons in your back of your legs are reporting to the brain, pain, do something, pain, do something, right? That's the neuron sending the information. There's another thought, which is like I'm in charge thought, and we're meditating and we cannot move thought, and that has its priority. And those two priorities are colliding, right? Now the brain has to reach a threshold where it will decide this one's more important. As long as it decides the meditation one is important, the pain one keeps saying pain, 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 right? So yeah, it happened to me in meditation. I realized, what's the point? Why should I sit in pain? Let's adjust the position. And then you go deeper because the pain goes away, right? But who's doing it? Throughout that, you're just allowing your role as the awareness. And as the mind begins to realize what you are, the decisions are simple, right? You are this loving, present awareness. When I say loving, it's not just, it's silly that in spiritual circles, it sounds like we just add this word. But that is the nature of awareness. There's a kind of a open, peaceful affection there. Yeah. If that bit of love enters this process, then the decision is simple. Yeah. Okay, let's reach a compromise, whatever. The brain reaches its conclusion. And you as awareness are just observing the process, and your presence and the clarity of the mind, how clear the mind is in what you are, resolves everything.
So you said something about, so the role here is to shift the attention into, it's not shifting. Is it more
The mind
being,
has to be clear on what you are. You are the awareness. Let's have a third thought. Yeah, the two thoughts fighting. The third thought should come in, the arbitrator. Well, who are we fighting about? Who is the Lord here? Who do we serve?
right?
It resolves the problem. If you serve a self who has to meditate and stay very still and be very pious, then there's a problem. Once there's a realization there's no such self, then
So-
the thought that was,
So then who is being served? Not a person. So just, and you said something about love that brings a softness to this moment a little bit, right? Like a little ease, like.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what happened.
who do we serve? Yeah, the thoughts should ask, who do we serve? Because then the thoughts which are irrelevant will just drop off. Because can the thought which is preventing your leg from moving serve awareness? No, it's causing more trouble. It's creating an annoying experience that's unnecessary.
So when the question was asked, who do we serve? It was nothing, and it just dropped because it's I don't know. That's what happened right now. It's,
Yeah. It's just getting rid of the small stuff. Who cares?
who cares, right? So this whole thing, it's so important. So even that thing, if I see that, it's just a thought, and then it's just back to just here.
Yeah, and then move your leg.
Remove my leg. I know. Thank you. Ah, it hurts. Thank you.
Bindu.
Thank you. My question is, you were talking about here and now, and when I envision here and now, I'm always in the realm of time and space, like now. Can you please explain a little bit more where I'm being caught in envisioning here and now as something that is in the realm of time and space when it's not? And can you talk a little bit more about that? Because that was beautiful.
Sure. And so maybe let's go back to the Bahiya Sutta Nader was talking about. It really points out how here is not a point in time, in space and time. Right? Because the idea is we are seeing from a point. We're observing from a point in space. And on the surface level, it's true, because whatever the scene you see, that's from a certain point. But it's like when you see a photo, it was taken from a different point in space and time, but now you're observing it. You have the same perspective as the camera at that point. Doesn't mean you're at that point in space. That's just with the photo, right? So the photo is giving the perspective, which is true to the instrument. And that's the same with the eyes. What you're seeing, it's true to the instrument. The perspective is as of this body. But where can sight appear? Can sight itself appear at a point in space? Because when you consider the scene, there's a space in which that scene is appearing. Now I'm using the other scene, SCENE, scene. The scene is appearing in space. It's a visual space. Where can that visual space exist? It does not exist in a physical space, yeah? Because when you dream, your body is lying there in let's say in a physical space. The dream appears in a subjective space.
Mm-hmm.
Where is that? So you question that. All of this experience, everything here is subjective. So it's this space, this whole world is appearing in a subjective space.
Mm-hmm.
Same with any other world, right? Any other experience, any other life must appear in the same way as a subjective world. Where do these worlds exist? Now the physical space is irrelevant for this question. You've arrived at the question from turning inwards. Where does experience arise? When we go back to the point of what's called birth, right? At some point, the first experience of this life appeared. Where did it appear? That is not a point in time and space. When you get to that, you're arriving at the here and now, because nothing has changed since then. All that has happened since that point is experiences have been flowing past.
Has that
The
experience, has that experience not happened in the brain?
Experience has some correlation to what happens in the brain, but it cannot be in the brain, right? Can you contain an experience in a physical thing? Can you? Can you bottle up a feeling? No, right? You can't quantify emotion. You cannot contain experience in a physical vessel. Yes, the brain activity has correlates to what we experience, what is being experienced. But experience, like that connection between why should there be any experience at all? That's the hard problem of consciousness. It still hasn't, like, there's no way to explain it in the normal view of the world for now. But ours is not a normal view of the world. Ours is that awareness is fundamental. So when a brain works a certain way, it produces experiences just because there's awareness within which that instrument is operating. Anyway, so the here and now, the question is, where does a dream world appear? That is here. That's from where you're observing this life. And can that be a point in time and space? That's what you should consider.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We're out of time, I believe. So anyone have any last questions or comments? Otherwise, we'll close off. No, all good.
Just want to say thank
All right.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nabil.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.